smoke.
Let me give you some really good advice. Be the rabbit.
Oh! Okay, wow.
It's because of you my son can't walk properly and has a messed up face.
He's still angry late. Just took it.
Yeah.
Welcome to Best Movies. Today, we're diving into the 2019 comedy drama Jojo Rabbit. A word of warning. There are spoilers ahead, so please watch carefully if you haven't seen the film yet.
I might eat later. For now, I'm just going to chew on these grapes.
In the crumbling fictional town of Falkenheim, set in Nazi Germany...
Well, I'm especially hungry tonight. So maybe I'll just finish yours. Don't want it to go to waste.
...lives Jojo, a 10-year-old boy whose fervent nationalism is rivaled only by his inability to tie his own shoelaces. Jojo is so immersed in Nazi ideals that he even imagines Adolf Hitler as his friend. Eager to serve his country, he joins the Jungvolk, the youth branch of the Hitler Youth, alongside his friend Yorkie. At a weekend camp run by the quirky Captain Klenzendorf, his sidekick Freddie Finkel, and Fräulein Rahm, the head of the League of German Girls, the boys receive miniature uniforms and a ceremonial dagger. They then participate in activities like grenade throwing, trench digging, map reading, and gas defense drills, while the girls are taught how to dress wounds, make beds, and even lessons on pregnancy. Although Jojo excels in activities such as reciting anti-Semitic dogma and burning books, he falters when it comes to hand-to-hand combat. His hesitation catches the eye of the older boys. When it's time to learn how to kill, they hand him a rabbit and demand a demonstration. Despite his assertions that he is not scared, Jojo can't bring himself to act, and he tries to free the rabbit. A teen, amused by his failure, snatches the animal away and kills it, ridiculing Jojo in the process. From that moment, he is mockingly called Jojo Rabbit, a nickname that stings deeply, driving him away to the woods. Sitting by a tree root and weeping, Jojo is approached by his imaginary friend, Hitler,
Nobody.
who tells him that rabbits, too, are brave, venturing into the wild daily to forage for carrots, and always remaining cautious. Inspired by this analogy, Jojo returns to camp. As Captain Klenzendorf instructs the kids in throwing grenades, Jojo boldly steals a grenade from his hand and dashes into the forest. His throw goes awry. The grenade bounces off a tree, lands on his feet, and explodes right on his face. Jojo loses consciousness, his memories now a blur of hospital visits, and his mother, Rosie Betzler, checking on him. When he awakens days later in his room, Jojo first notices a limp in his leg, and then the scars that now mar his face in the mirror. Rosie appears, embracing him tightly and reassuring him that, although his father is gone and his sister Inge has died, she is there for him. After helping him dress in his uniform once again, Rosie takes Jojo back to the Jungvolk headquarters. There they find Klenzendorf awkwardly feeding Finkel, a consequence of his recent demotion for negligence. Rosie, without hesitation, strikes Klenzendorf sharply, making him promise that he will assign Jojo a safe and meaningful task, even if it isn't on the front line. Soon enough, Jojo is charged with putting up propaganda posters around town and delivering conscription notices, and he carries out this duty with enthusiastic zeal. One afternoon, while on duty, Jojo finds his mother staring silently at a group of people hanged in the public square. When he asks what they did, she coldly replies, "What they deserved." Later at home, Jojo hears strange noises coming from his sister's room. Upon investigating, he discovers a mysterious mark that climbs the wall. Inserting his knife into a small gap, he pries open a hidden panel, revealing a secret space cluttered with various objects. To his shock, a young girl named Elsa Kor appears from the darkness. Elsa follows him as he flees the house in terror, and stops him just before he reaches the front door by pushing him against the wall. Holding his dagger, she admits that she is Jewish and confides that Rosie had secretly invited her to hide. She warns him that if he ever reveals her presence, she will claim that both he and Rosie are complicit, a revelation that would lead to their death. After retreating to her hiding spot with his knife, a shaken Jojo retreats to his room and debates his next move with his imaginary Hitler. Concluding that negotiation is the best option, he grabs a kitchen knife and a pot for protection and returns to Elsa, urging her to find another place to hide. However, when Elsa suddenly surprises him from behind, she snatches the kitchen knife and forcefully ejects him from the room. Back in the privacy of his room, Jojo and his imaginary Hitler eventually agree that he must make Elsa feel secure so that she will lower her guard. Later, when Rosie returns home, Jojo hesitantly tells her about the noises upstairs, but she dismisses his concerns as nothing more than rats scurrying about. After tucking Jojo into bed, she quietly advises Elsa to be extra cautious because, if disaster were to strike, she would have to choose between her own safety and that of her hidden guest. The following day, Jojo ventures to the swimming pool for therapeutic exercise to help his injured leg. There, he notices Klenzendorf and Finkel sitting close together, their expressions oddly fearful of Rosie. Once Rosie leaves, Jojo confronts Klenzendorf, asking what should be done if a Jewish person were caught. The answer is clear-cut. Call the Gestapo, who would execute the Jew and anyone who helps them. When Jojo wonders aloud how to even identify a Jewish person, Klenzendorf admits in vague terms that he doesn't really know. Perhaps someone should write a book about it. Returning home, Jojo tries to speak with Elsa once again. Recognizing that they are at a stalemate, neither willing to reveal the other's secret, he strikes a deal. She can stay if she provides him with information for an exposé on the Jewish people. Elsa reluctantly agrees, yet even as she explains that Jewish people are just like anyone else, she is forced to resort to distorted stereotypes, describing them as money-loving demons who are allergic to food. Realizing that Elsa intends to have him run errands for her, Jojo launches into a tirade, extolling the virtues of Aryan supremacy and decrying the weakness he associates with Jews. Furious, Elsa grabs him, covers his mouth, and shakes him violently, stressing that there is nothing weak about her people before disappearing back into the shadows. That evening, Rosie kindles a fire, pours herself some wine, and plays music. A quiet celebration of the small victories as she recounts the Allied successes in Italy, with France expected to follow. Jojo argues with her over her apparent disloyalty to their country, but Rosie cuts him off sharply and orders him to eat. Suspicious of the food portions, Jojo deduces that Rosie might be reserving a serving for Elsa, and eventually he helps himself to the leftovers. Longing for the understanding of a father he never knew, Jojo listens as Rosie, wearing her late husband's jacket and even painting a faux beard with ash, playfully admonishes him, adopting his father's deep, commanding tone before urging him to care for himself and joining him in a reluctant dance. The next day, Jojo hands Elsa a pencil and paper so she can draw a map of where Jewish people supposedly live, even extending the exercise to include where their women lay their eggs. Elsa begins to sketch, but refuses to divulge any details about her family, except for mentioning her fiancé, Nathan, who is away fighting with the resistance. In an ironic twist, the final drawing she gives Jojo turns out to be an abstract representation of his own head, symbolizing how, for her, Jewish identity is everywhere. Inspired by this revelation, Jojo devises a plan. He writes a letter impersonating Nathan, breaking up with Elsa. Although she is incredulous, the letter stings and Elsa retreats to her hiding place in anguish. Overwhelmed with remorse, Jojo writes another letter on Nathan's behalf, assuring Elsa that the previous message was false and that Nathan's love remains. Grateful yet troubled, Elsa asks for more letters in the future, and the two engage in a game of naming famous figures from both sides, until Elsa outsmarts him by mentioning Jesus. On a later walk along a riverbank, Rosie reminisces about the vibrant days of the past when the area was filled with dancing and romance, a time when children played freely without the burdens of politics. Rosie insists that children should be carefree and joyful, while Jojo, though conflicted, dismisses these ideas and speeds off on his bike, with Rosie following close behind. When they reach the road, they witness a truck of soldiers returning home, their faces etched with exhaustion and defeat. Distraught by the somber mood, Jojo retreats home, only to be met by Elsa, who distracts him with whimsical, fantastical stories about her people. Slowly, Jojo finds himself warming to her company, even as his imaginary Hitler chides him for letting his German brain be swayed. That night, as Jojo drifts off to sleep, Rosie spends some time with Elsa, expressing her gratitude that Elsa is finally blossoming into a young woman, a stark contrast to her own stifled youth. The following day, at the Jungvolk headquarters, tension is palpable as Jojo sees Klenzendorf and Finkel huddled together. When he mentions his plan for an exposé on Jewish people, they laugh heartily, skeptical of his earnestness. Klenzendorf then shows off some flamboyant new uniform designs he has created before assigning Jojo a new task: collecting scrap metal to support the war effort. Dressed absurdly in a makeshift robot costume, Jojo encounters Rosie on the streets as she distributes anti-Nazi flyers. He meets Yorkie, who has been accepted as a soldier, and when Jojo excitedly tells him he has captured a Jewish person, Yorkie nonchalantly replies that he spotted one in the forest and admits he cannot understand the fuss. This encounter plants seeds of doubt in Jojo's mind. Later, when he visits Elsa to offer her some colored pencils he found, he hesitantly reminds her that friendship between a Nazi and a Jew is strictly forbidden. Elsa, however, gently observes that Jojo is not truly a Nazi. He is merely a lonely child searching for belonging, and they agree to disagree. After Elsa cleans up and borrows some of Inge's clothes for the evening meal, an unexpected knock at the door interrupts their fragile peace. Jojo opens the door to find a group of Gestapo officers led by Hermann Deertz, followed closely by Klenzendorf and Finkel, who claim to have brought along some pamphlets. The Gestapo immediately begins a thorough search of the house for any sign of subversion. Deertz interrogates Jojo about his mother's prolonged absence and why his uniform is missing his knife. In response, Elsa, now dressed in Inge's clothes, steps forward and claims that she had taken the knife because her brother had been bothering her. The officers then turn their attention to Elsa's room. Although Deertz remains suspicious and demands to see her papers, Elsa cleverly produces Inge's ID and correctly states her birth date to Klenzendorf. Reluctantly, the Gestapo lets her go. However, they do notice Jojo's exposé book, as the officers leaf through its pages, laughing at the crude, dehumanizing sketches of Jewish people. Elsa is visibly pained by the cruelty of his illustrations, while Klenzendorf's expression remains unsympathetic. After the search concludes with no incriminating evidence found, Klenzendorf returns Elsa's ID and Jojo's knife. Yet Elsa soon spots discrepancies in the date on the identification, revealing that Klenzendorf has been secretly helping those in hiding. Jojo, unfazed, casually remarks that since no one really remembers Inge, Elsa could assume her identity and live normally. But Elsa, deeply hurt by the hateful content of Jojo's book, declares that she can no longer be friends with him. In a storm of anger, his imaginary Hitler scolds him for ever considering Elsa a good person instead of a threat. Shortly thereafter, while Jojo scavenges for food in the streets, he stumbles upon a harrowing sight. Rosie, suspended from a gallows in the public square. Devastated, Jojo clings to her legs, crying uncontrollably, and even trying unsuccessfully to tie her shoelaces together. For hours he stares at her lifeless form before returning home, knife in hand and consumed with guilt and rage, ready to lash out at Elsa. Just when he is about to strike, Elsa intervenes, saving him and leaving only a shallow scratch on her skin. Overwhelmed by sorrow and regret, Jojo begins to cry once more, and Elsa, moved by compassion, embraces him tightly. She reveals that she has always suspected Rosie was part of the resistance, although Rosie had hidden the truth from Jojo to protect him, and confesses that her own parents were taken away to a concentration camp, leaving her with no one but herself. As the city deteriorates further, Jojo finds himself repeatedly venturing into the streets to scavenge for food from waste bins, and he and Elsa establish a small routine, sharing meals and bonding over the fake letters Jojo writes on Nathan's behalf. One afternoon, chaos finally erupts as the Allies launch an offensive, capitalizing on the power vacuum following Hitler's suicide. Jojo meets Yorkie, who is armed with makeshift weaponry because the army is so desperate for soldiers. Jojo quips that his Jewish girlfriend might soon be free, but Yorkie wryly points out that some of the Russians and Japanese are far worse than any Jew. Soon after, Fräulein Rahm rounds them up. After dismissing Yorkie with a warning shot, she even hands Jojo a uniform jacket to protect him from friendly fire. In the ensuing melee, a bomb explodes nearby, leaving Jojo dazed as he watches the surreal battle unfold, with soldiers, civilians, and even the flamboyantly dressed Klenzendorf and Finkel caught in the chaos. Too frightened to fight, Jojo hides in an abandoned building until the fighting subsides, only to emerge later and see American forces replacing Nazi flags with their own symbols of victory. As Soviet troops round up every Nazi in sight, including Dirtz and the remainder of the Gestapo, Jojo finds himself, clad in his uniform jacket, taken captive by the soldiers. Among the prisoners he spots Klenzendorf, who, in a surprising moment of tenderness, tells Jojo he has been a good boy and urges him to take care of his sister. However, Klenzendorf quickly rips off his jacket, spits on Jojo, and hurls a slur in an effort to secure his own release. Helplessly, Jojo watches as Klenzendorf is led away to be executed by firing squad. On his way home, Jojo encounters Yorkie once more, who nonchalantly mentions that he is off to receive a cuddle from his mother. When Jojo points out that this might mean his Jewish girlfriend could soon be free, he is instantly crestfallen at the thought of losing Elsa, and he rushes back to the house. In desperation, he fabricates a plan. He tells Elsa that Germany has won the war, attempting to convince her to stay. Later, while sifting through his book filled with sketches of his mother and a rabbit trapped in a cage, Jojo pretends to write another letter from Nathan, outlining a strategy to help Elsa escape. Finally, Elsa confesses that Nathan died of tuberculosis the previous year. Yet she finds comfort in the letters Jojo has invented. Overwhelmed by his conflicting emotions, Jojo admits that he loves her, though he knows that she only regards him as a brother. Determined to help her escape regardless, Jojo stands firm. His imaginary Hitler protests vehemently, but Jojo, with resolute determination, kicks the apparition out of the window. With hesitation lingering in her eyes, Elsa finally steps toward the door. Encouraging her gently, Jojo accompanies her outside. At that very moment, a car emblazoned with the American flag drives past, prompting Elsa to slap Jojo in disappointment for the deception. Caught between uncertainty and hope, the two ultimately decide to celebrate their hard-won freedom by sharing one last bittersweet dance.